NXT held its Roadblock show from the theater at Madison Square Garden on Tuesday. It was basically a PLE on TV. Stand and Deliver is going to have a tough time topping this show. That's how good it was. I love the venue. It's literally in the basement of Madison Square Garden. It's underneath the garden itself. They were completely sold out, and it was a mix of NXT talent and TNA talent. So we had the Hardys defending their TNA tag team titles, but also Oba Femi defending his NXT championship against the TNA X Division champion. And then in the main event, winner take all between Giulia and Stephanie Vaquer. Every match delivered on this show, not one bad match on the entire card. We had the Hardys against Fraxiom opening the show. The outcome here was never really in doubt, given only the TNA tag team titles were on the line, and I figured Oba was winning his match. So if that were the case, they had to give TNA something here, and this was it. Would they do this if the TNA tag team champions were a homegrown team and not WWE legends? Maybe not. Would they have had the Rascals, for example, beat Fraxiom? Probably not. But it was still a win for TNA. The Hardys are in their nostalgia run right now. They play their greatest hits, and they don't do anything too crazy, which, especially for Jeff, is for the better. And that's really all they need to do because the fans still go crazy for it. Axiom reversed the twist of fate from Matt. He crotched Jeff on the top rope. Axiom hit Jeff with a super Spanish fly. Nathan Frazier hit Jeff with a Phoenix splash. Matt shoved Axiom into Frazier to break up the pinfall. And Jeff wiped them both out with the Whisper in the Wind, then hit the twist of fate on Frazier. Axiom tried a drop kick, but accidentally hit his partner. Matt hit Axiom with the twist of fate, and then Jeff crushed Frazier, it was, with the Swanton Bomb to win it. Real good stuff here, and what a week for Axiom. Wrestling the Hardys at Madison Square Garden on Tuesday, and then flying home to Spain to wrestle the World Heavyweight Champion Gunther on SmackDown. Now, he lost both matches, so it was not great for him in that respect, but I'm sure he had to be on Cloud 9 this week. Roxanne Perez against Jordynne Grace, another really good match. Roxanne worked over both of her legs. Grace's knee gave out on a Vader bomb attempt, and Roxanne went right back to work on the legs. Jordynne made a comeback, rolled through a high crossbody, and then they had a striking battle, which, Roxanne's not going to win that. Roxanne clipped the knee, hit a head scissors DDT, and then went up top, hit a frog splash for 2. Then she floated over into a crossface. Jordynne escaped, avoided pop rocks, hit a back fist, and then her rolling Death Valley driver followed by the Grace driver, which is the made in Japan for the win. If Roxanne is finishing up in NXT, and it sure feels like she is, it was the right move to have Grace win, even if Roxanne is not done yet, and she is not finishing up with NXT. It was still the right move. Grace got her win back from Battleground last year. Remember they ran that show at the UFC Apex? Roxanne beat her on that show. That was when Jordynne was still the TNA Knockouts champion. So she got her win back. And she gets to beat a former NXT Women's Champion. She seems primed now to challenge for the top title at Stand and Deliver, most likely. I don't know who else would even make sense for that spot unless they plan to run Giulia back in a rematch. There really is nobody else that would make as much sense as Jordynne Grace in that spot. We had Oba Femi defending the NXT Championship against the TNA X Division champion, Moose. Now, before the match, Oba ran into The Undertaker, who was casually hanging out in the back, and Undertaker said that he's been watching him for a while now, and he was impressed. And he told Oba, "I don't need to tell you how important this match is tonight. Go out there and defend your yard." And they fist bumped. So a nice endorsement there from the dead man. No pressure. What's not to like about what we got here? We had two big dudes who can work, beating the hell out of each other and throwing each other around with ease, like you would think they were lightweights. Moose tried for a springboard crossbody, but Oba uppercutted him out of midair, and then he dropped Moose with a Death Valley driver for a near fall. Moose dragged Oba to the top rope and delivered a superplex, but on the roll through into what usually would be a Falcon Arrow if this was a Seth Rollins match, Oba no-sold it out of desperation into a suplex of his own, and both men were down. Oba turned Moose inside out after this with a clothesline. Moose came back with a power bomb for 2. They were going back and forth. Neither man would give an inch. Oba gorilla pressed Moose, who was no small man, over his head. And he just threw him out of the ring to the floor right in front of the announcers. And Moose took a hard fucking bump to the floor. I mean, good Lord. So Moose was able to beat the 10 count back in at 9. Oba and Moose, they took each other out to the floor. Moose put Oba through the announce desk with a Uranagi. That got a holy shit chant. Moose speared him in the middle of the ring, but Oba kicked out. He went for another spear. Oba hit the pop-up powerbomb for the pin to retain the title. This was awesome. And even in defeat, Moose lost nothing with that performance. The dude went out there and had the match of his life on the biggest stage of his career in front of over 700,000 viewers. I was surprised this show, as loaded up as it was, didn't do a better number than it did. I actually thought that number was disappointing this week. But that's a hell of a lot bigger audience than any TNA audience that Moose has ever wrestled in front of on TV. So I hope we get to see this again down the road. But this match, I thought, absolutely delivered. Ethan Page against Javon Evans seemingly closed out their feud in a New York City street fight, or at least it felt that way to me. Ethan is a very good heel. He has helped bring out a harder side of Evans with this feud, which I think was the whole reason this was designed in the first place, was to bring out a side of Javon Evans, as young as he is, that we haven't seen yet. This was the hardcore match of the night, so we had tables and chairs and all that kind of stuff. There always has to be one. I mean, at least the feud warranted it. Right? I mean, Javon's coming for revenge. They don't like each other. There's a personal issue there. I had already seen enough of this type of match, though, the previous 2 days, between the Hollywood ending and the Ospreay cage match and the cage match on Raw. So it's like, all right, we got another one to get through here. Evans gave Page a blue thunder bomb on top of a chair for a near fall. Evans teased a pile driver on top of some set-up chairs, but Page reversed and used a straitjacket slam into the chairs. So then Ethan drove Evans through a table that was propped up in the corner with a running power slam. He then, or Evans did, then later on sent Ethan off the apron through a table at ringside. I think they had the table propped up from the announce desk to the apron, like a table bridge. And he put him through the table outside the ring with a leaping cutter over the top rope. Evans put Page up against the announce desk at this point, and then he went in and he did an Undertaker-esque dive over the top that took himself and Ethan Page over the announce desk. Back in the ring, Evans caught Page with a corkscrew splash for a near fall. He reversed out of a twist of fate. He hit Ethan with a cutter on top of a chair, and then finally he did a springboard and he hit Page with a cutter with a chair wrapped around Page's neck for the win. So a very good match. And again, if this was the blow-off between these two, I think it was a program that benefited Javon Evans because he did get to show an attitude and an edge that we just had not previously seen on this show. But then after the match, the lights went out and the new Temu Retribution crew appeared from out of the crowd. They hit the ring and they attacked Javon Evans. One of them, I don't know who these guys are. Obviously, they're all performance center people. I have no fucking idea who any of these people are. It was one of the smaller dudes. One of them randomly hit, I mean, it was like a phantom flip bump into the corner. I have no idea what this was supposed to be. Like, the guy literally slides into the ring. He ducks a clothesline from Javon Evans as he's running towards Javon. He ducks the clothesline and he continues running. And he just jumps into the turnbuckle. Like, you remember the way that Daniel Bryan used to do the running drop kick in the corner? That's kind of like what he did here, but there was nobody in the corner. I mean, unless John Cena was in the corner, but there was nobody in the corner. Just crashed and burned that he fell on his head. And then they left Evans laying with their powerbomb drop, where two of them fling the guy up into the air and the other two guys catch him on the way down. They're trying to create a mystique around these performance center guys. It just comes off as very goofy to me. Once they reveal their identities and they ditch the dumb masks, we'll see if this has any legs to it. And they close with the winner-take-all match. The NXT Women's Champion, Giulia, against the Women's North American Champion, Stephanie Vaquer. A huge match that was booked out of nowhere and not even saved for WrestleMania weekend, which is only a month away. You would think they would save this match at least for Vegas. So it's easy to believe the reports that Giulia is hurt, that she not injured, but she's banged up and she needed time off. So they had to do something to rush the title off of her. That makes sense to me. But then, the report said banged up. What does banged up even mean? All wrestlers are banged up. There is not a single pro wrestler out there that isn't banged up in some way, shape, or form. Now, she broke her wrist 9 months ago in Marigold, and she had to have surgery. Is it tied into that? Is she having issues with the wrist? Brian Alvarez the other day mentioned a minor visa issue. So which is it? Is it a visa issue or is it an injury issue? If it's a minor visa issue, it could be as simple as she has to go back home to Japan and finalize a few things, and then she flies back home. Maybe she's even back in time for Stand and Deliver. So we'll see. But once those reports came out, it spoiled the outcome of the match. Didn't make it any less of a great match, though. She certainly didn't work this match like somebody who was dealing with any nagging injuries. And if it was anything serious, they would not have let her work, period. This was fast-paced, probably because they had a hard stop at 10 p.m. since they were airing on the CW. They don't get an overrun. The New York fans, they booed Giulia for stopping Stephanie's move where she does the head scissors and then smashes her opponent's face over and over again into the mat with those pelvic thrusts. I don't know what happens to Booker T on commentary whenever she does this. It's like he just lapses into some sort of weird, perverted trance. So she did the move to Stephanie instead. Giulia did. Funny enough, Stephanie did the best job of selling her own move than anybody that she's ever done the move to. And Stephanie did end up doing the move herself later on. And then Charlotte Flair did the move on SmackDown Friday night. Charlotte Flair needs to leave that one to Stephanie, because she used that move in her match with B-Fab on Friday. And I don't care if people are like, oh, she's done the move before. It's her move. I don't care. I don't care if she's done it before or she's done a variation of it. She cannot do it as well as Stephanie can. So you best not do it at all and just leave it to her. So they had 5 minutes left in this match. Stephanie hit her finish, the package neck breaker across the knee, only for a near fall. And then there was this magnificent spot where Stephanie came off the top rope with a corkscrew moonsault, and with as smooth of a transition as you will ever see, Giulia caught her into a triangle on the landing. Like, that was fucking awesome. And Giulia hit the Arrivederci knee, Steph kicked out, and then Stephanie hit 2 super kicks and 2 package neck breakers across the knee to put her away and win the NXT Women's Championship. An excellent main event, and despite Vic Joseph using the word unification, I know what I heard on TV last week, this was not billed as a unification match. So Stephanie is a double champion, and we'll have to wait and see, how they decide to address this on Tuesday. If history is any indication, she's going to surrender the North American title, and they'll hold a tournament to crown a new champion. That's how they handle things when Keith Lee became a double champion in NXT. He said he wanted others to have the same opportunities that he had, and so he gave the title up to focus on the NXT championship. And actually, it wasn't even a tournament. They crowned the new champion in a 5-way ladder match that Damian Priest won. So it doesn't even need to be a tournament. It could be a multi-woman match at Stand and Deliver, and then crown a new champion that way. Strictly in terms of the weekly TV show and not counting any takeovers or PLEs or anything like that, Peacock specials, I defy you to go find me a better episode of NXT television. This had to be the best single episode of NXT television that they've ever done. There is not a better one that exists. Not one that I've ever seen. The Oba Femi versus Moose and the Stephanie versus Giulia matches, they were both rushed onto this show with barely any build. Like they were in a rush to get them over with. If Giulia needs time off, then I can understand it. I'm not sure why Oba and Moose had to be rushed, other than they just would rather have Oba defend the NXT title against an NXT star over WrestleMania weekend and not a TNA guy. So they felt like this was the time to do it. That, and they wanted an attraction for their Madison Square Garden show to sell tickets. And it worked. They were legitimately sold out. But it was definitely super rushed.